A lot of people like to say that the American dream is dead or it's fleeting. But the truth is, it's just more difficult. And there's no doubt about that. Buying a home has become increasingly hard over the last several years. When we think about the COVID market and multiple offers, lines around the block, having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking price. Then mortgage rates spiked and affordability took a real hit. Then fewer and fewer homes were on the market for buyers to be able to choose from. You name it, it's been happening over the last 5 years. Every turn in the market has presented buyers with a steeper hill to climb. But there is a way and an exact strategy and framework if you want to make sure that you win the rest of 2025, or even if you plan on buying next year. I'm gonna break this down into a few key steps for you about how our clients are actually breaking through and getting their offers accepted and moving into those homes and finally putting to end this hunt for a home, which is so stressful and in many cases too long. So gone are the days of walking around with a pre-approval letter that you got from a broker or a bank and taking it from house to house, looking around and taking your time perusing through that property to decide if you want to actually make an offer. In today's market, if you're not fully prepared and dialed in and working with the right people, you're not actually home shopping, you're just touring homes. Some of you might relate to this if you've been striking out over the last couple of years. The rest of 2025, and quite honestly, all of 2026 ahead of us, is going to be a what if market. What if rates jump? What if they drop? What if prices increase? What if it's not so competitive? What if there's an opportunity to ask for a concession here? You have to have some flexibility or adaptability, more importantly, to be able to break through in this market. Again, the days of just getting approved and then going out and shopping and being rigid with the program and the rate that you were approved at and hoping that this will all line up are gone. The market moves way too fast. There's too much volatility. Every time there's news out of DC, the mortgage market is affected. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions because a lot of people wait for what the Fed is going to do, not realizing that the Fed has nothing to do with mortgage rates. The mortgage rate market is a live market. It's like the stock market. It moves in real time. Prices go up and down, and in many cases, multiple times throughout a day. So the buyers that are winning and are going to continue to win are the ones who are prepared for the what ifs. And I want to get into all of that here in today's video. But before we do, let me reintroduce myself to you guys. My name is Arjun Dhingra. I am a 24-year veteran of the mortgage industry. I absolutely love working with first-time home buyers and helping them achieve what is now feeling like sometimes impossible and breaking through in a market that's really competitive. My background is competitive, being a former athlete for Team USA as a 2-time Taekwondo world champion and also a former Team USA co-head coach. I live here in the Bay Area with my family in Marin, but work in San Francisco covering both counties. If I can be of any help to you, if you've been trying to break into this market and feel like you're stuck, or if you're just dipping your toes into the water and want to test and see what strategies could work for you, please reach out to me, because my team and I would be honored to assist you in any way we can at Arjun Mortgage on Instagram, and I will personally write you back and do everything I can to assist you. Okay, so let's get into today's video. First thing that has to be dialed in is your approval, and it needs to be for a range and not a specific number. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the days of getting approved for a particular rate, let's just say 6.5% for a certain price point, and then going out in what is already a very competitive market, hoping that that rate and price point you're approved for is going to match up with the property, is a bit of a fool's errand anymore. Rates and prices in just about every market in the United States move at a very, very fast pace. There's nothing steady about them. So if your budget is only working for you in today's rate environment with today's prices in that neighborhood you're looking, your chances of getting that home are slim to none. And here's what I mean. Going back to that example of being pre-approved for a 6.5% and then going out shopping. If some economic data in that particular week happens to come out showing that inflation is maybe still a little bit too stubborn, or oil prices are continuing to climb, that 6.5% in real time could become 6.75%. And if you were right on the edge of approval, you are now on the outside looking in when it comes to the mortgage loan that you applied for. Now, this has happened to a lot of people, but it is foolish to continue doing things the same way. So what we do is we will approve our buyers at least 1/4 to 0.5% above where the current market is. That way there is some flexibility. If rates do decide to spike on that particular day based on something crazy that comes out of DC, or if the home price just suddenly were to spike because of a competitive situation. It seems simple, but having this flexibility or adaptability is key if you want to give yourself a fighter's chance. The next thing that's important is to have some down payment flexibility. Much like the approval flexibility, you need to have some versatility with the loan products and the down payments that are tied to those loan products. So what we are doing for our clients is making sure that they can be approved for the smallest down payment possibility, as well as a mid-range, and then the max that that particular client is comfortable with putting down for a down payment. This gives us flexibility that if we needed to bump bump up in price, we can adjust the down payment based on the cash on hand without breaking the bank. Just think of this all as ammo. You want to have a lot of weapons in your bag to be able to go out and attack this market with. One stick or one approval letter to go out there and fight this competitive market is not enough. The next thing that's key is having a mafia-like team. Now, we hear a lot of these expressions through social media or just through chat channels about it's important who you work with, or who you work with matters. Now, some people are just bragging about their expertise or their ability to try and get a deal done. But there is a lot of truth to it. Who you work with in a very competitive market matters. Amateur hour is over. And if you want to take a leap of faith in working with your cousin Jerry, who's never done a deal simply because of family loyalty, and you don't want to be disinvited from Thanksgiving, you do so at your own risk. What you'll probably be better off doing is finding a way for Jerry to help get his first deal under his belt in a not so competitive situation, or maybe with an investment property where it's not a matter of life and death if you don't get this property, and stick with an actual pro. People who are well connected and networked in a particular market are going to be the difference between you landing that home and being stuck on the outside. Over these last 20 plus years, particularly in the last few where it's been uber competitive, I cannot tell you a situation where one of our buyers was not taking some kind of advantage of our connections in this marketplace, whether it's with the agent on the other side of the deal or just knowing some of the parties involved to help this deal get pulled across to the finish line. These things matter. Just like when you were in college, you wanted to be friends with the host at that nightclub or the bouncer who was running the line to get into the place. If you knew someone, your chances of getting in were better. If you didn't, you were stuck waiting in line and eventually gave up at midnight when they were letting nobody else in. The next very important feature or strategy here, guys, is speed. And speed kills. It's ultimately your edge, the ability to not only get through the process with the lender you're dealing with very quickly, and this is something we take immense pride in on our side, getting a buyer approved within 36 hours, fully approved, but more importantly, the ability to close in very, very fast time frames. If you make an offer on a place that's competitive and you can close extremely fast with no contingencies, you're going to have a leg up on someone that might even have a higher offer than you, but wants to take longer to actually close that deal. At the end of the day, guys, people who are selling want their money quickly. So if you can give them their money quickly by honoring a very fast contract, you're going to look a lot more appealing to them than someone who might be offering a higher price but is going to take longer to get there. Sellers are nervous in this market. Let's be honest. Anyone who's putting their home on the market isn't doing so because they're testing the wild waters of profitability or hoping that someone's going to bring them some ridiculous offer that's hundreds of thousands or even $1 million in the cases of San Francisco above asking price. Those days are gone. It is now very much, if you want to call it that, a buyer's market, which means sellers want certainty. They want speed. They want clarity. And if you are not giving them that in your offer and the product that you're putting together your mortgage with, you're dead in the water. On average, our buyers are closing transactions in 14 days or less. And aside from an all-out cash offer, we've yet to find anyone competitively in our space that's doing things faster. The last thing is being creative. Here's the thing that most buyers in today's market miss. It's not always about the price. Again, those days are gone. There is a sweet spot or a nerve that you can touch on with every seller because they're all unique and have different motivations now for why they want to get out of their home. And if you can find a way to make the connection or actually push that nerve or button, you're going to get your house. For some, it might be speed in the transaction. They just want their money and need to be gone because they've already moved on to their next property or they're facing a life event that is forcing them to move quickly. But creative term deals are winning all the time in today's market. Before, if you tried to ask for any sort of concession or a credit towards closing costs or maybe taking a little bit off the sales price, you'd get laughed at. Sometimes the agent would tell you you cannot do that, even make you feel bad for it. Let me tell you this right now, guys. Any professional agent that you are working with that makes you feel bad or gives you guilt for wanting to negotiate a better deal simply because their ego is at stake should be fired. This is your money, your decision, your life, your home that you are fighting for, and their ego needs to take a back seat. And feel free to tell them that Arjun told you to say this to them. For my clients, I won't tolerate it, and you shouldn't either. But I'll tell you something from a personal standpoint that actually helped us land our home in Marin years ago. The sellers of our home needed to rent back. We were in a competitive situation with another buyer and had come in at roughly the same price. But in peeling back a few layers, I was able to understand that the seller, who had 3 children with a 4th one on the way, did not want the stress of having to find a place to rent short term before moving back east or to get gouged for being in this situation in the first place. So here's what we did. Knowing that the other party was probably going to throw some type of a number out there for a rent back, I decided to do something crazy and say, you know what, sellers, you can stay there for free for 2 months. Number one, I didn't have a mortgage payment for a full month afterwards because of how the mortgage contract works. But 2, in the grand scheme of things, for whatever monthly rent I could potentially get, was it going to be worth it to charge that at the risk of losing this home for the long term and continuing this ongoing search of trying to find the perfect property? No. And that ultimately ended up being the term that sealed the deal. The sellers thought it was too good to pass up on, considering that the other buyers did ultimately throw out a number there for a rent back, and with ours being basically for free, it was a no-brainer for them. But you have to think creatively. Now, that's just one example, but you also need to think about things that are to your advantage, because we are, as I mentioned, in a buyer's market. Instead of asking for a massive reduction or even a moderate reduction in sales price, perhaps take some of that money off the top and ask for it in the form of a credit to either buy down your interest rate, pay your closing costs, or do a very creative interest rate strategy such as a 2-1 buy down. This is going to have a far greater economic impact on you, not just in the long run, but in the immediate short term. Because at the end of the day, for most all price points, particularly here in the Bay Area, knocking $50,000 off a sales price is a drop in the bucket and is ultimately going to do nothing for you in terms of your property tax basis, the overall monthly mortgage payments, and the transaction costs involved in the deal. But $50,000 applied towards your closing costs or to be able to buy down your interest rate, far greater impact. So guys, ask for that credit. Offer the rent back if the seller needs some time. Be accommodative. The sellers will appreciate you for it. Take a repair credit instead of nitpicking at fixes. You're not just buying a house, you're trying to make a deal. And I think if you show some empathy towards the seller that you're dealing with, unlike the other way around a few years ago where sellers had no empathy for buyers and just wanted the most ridiculous offer to come in, you'll increase your chances of winning. The smoother you make the deal, the more attractive your offer becomes. So guys, the bottom line is that it takes great and creative strategy. The people that are more creative, they're faster, they're more efficient, are the ones who are going to win. You cannot be rigid in the home buying process anymore, because those that are rigid are effectively just tourists walking through homes hoping or dreaming that they might be able to buy it one day. But if you want your search to end and you want to get on with your life, then having all those weapons at your arsenal to go out there and attack this market is what you must do to win. Now, if our team can help you with any of this, please reach out to us at Arjun Mortgage on Instagram. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I will see you guys on the next one.